What's up, survivalists? Jason here. Today I'm going to show you how to make your very own spark wheel from a used Bic Lighter. Now, some of the things you're going to need, of course, the used Bic Lighter with no gas inside of it. If you want to be sure that there's no gas inside of it, just get yourself a normal rubber band, place it over the top of that red button, twist it, go up, twist it, go back down, and that is gonna press the button down all the way. Now you want to leave this outside for probably 2 hours to possibly even overnight, and that gas should definitely be out of there by then. Some other things: a marker, a ruler, or some type of measuring device, a good pair of pliers out of my Leatherman Wingman, and some type of cutting device, preferably probably a hacksaw blade, but you could possibly even use a bandsaw if you happen to have it. But I would only recommend the bandsaw if you're proficient with it enough, and especially with something as small as a Bic Lighter. You could possibly accidentally cut yourself with it. So the first cut you want to make is literally cutting it in half. But if you want a precise measurement from the edge right here where the plastic begins all the way down to 1.5 inches, you want to make a mark right there. And that is where you're going to be cutting. So the spring compartment is right around here, and it probably ends probably almost 1 millimeter away from the 1.5 inch line right there. So let's go ahead and cut this piece off. Now, the next step of this is to remove all the pieces from the top of here, even the spark wheel, the spring, and the piece of flint inside of there. So the easiest thing to start with is removing this flang guard or wind guard, whatever you want to call it. I don't know my Bicology. You can just simply pull that off. You don't need that. Got this child safety part. Pull that right off. Now you can pull off this button very simply by going underneath. So one thing I forgot to mention is to hold down the spark wheel when you're trying to break off that red button, or something like this is going to happen. Button very simply by going underneath, and never mind then. But I'm going to have to try to find that piece of flint. So the next step is to cut right below the Bic logo. You do not want to cut all the way through, because the core is where the spring actually is hidden inside. It's just a small little compartment. But you're just going to cut all the way around without cutting through the core. So let's try. And if you actually hear some type of scraping, like a metal scraping, stop. You're actually getting into the spring. So let's do that real quick. This is where a small hand hacksaw can come in handy, because this piece right here is a little bit too small to hold inside of that little hacksaw blade right there. So having it like right on the table, holding it with my fingers. You probably want to wear some gloves if you need any. So we got this all cut up around it, but the inside is not cut all the way through. So the next thing is to cut straight down from this edge down to probably here, and then this edge down here. But you can go all the way down if you want to. It might make it a little bit easier to actually reach the next spot or the next part of this little spark wheel. So let's cut this all the way down from the edge of this down all the way, and then from here all the way down. Let's do that. So here is what you're left with. Now the last step of cutting is literally taking your hacksaw blade right across the edge of the spring compartment. So taking off this flap and this flap right here. And you'll be left with something like that. So here is what you're left with. It is kind of rough, but all you really need to do is take some sandpaper and smooth it out. And try to make it look professional. The final step to your spark wheel is to add the spring, the flint, and the spark wheel. The one thing about the spark wheel is it only sparks one way when you roll it. So it doesn't really matter which way you put it because you're still going to have access from both sides. But if you wanted to, before taking it apart, put a dot on the spark wheel and on the flap on the edge right there so you know which side this spark wheel goes on. So let's go into the bathroom because that's probably the safest way if the spring accidentally comes out and it's going to fling it everywhere. So you definitely got to be careful about that. Now let's try to assemble this. Put in the spring. Try to add in the piece of flint. Sometimes the shiniest part right there. That means that was the piece that was going up. Try to push it down into the hole with the spring and hold it with your nail. Then you could come in with the wheel. It just pops right in. There we go. Sometimes it takes a few sparks to get it seated back into there because the flint probably isn't exactly flush with it at that time. But I see right here, works perfectly. And that is how you make your very own spark wheel. from a used Bic Lighter. Hope you enjoyed the video. I want to thank you all for watching. See you in the next one.